Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We're having a look at another devlog for the next major update, and this is for France. It is La Galissonière, and what it is a light cruiser that was developed for France in the 30s, and in War Thunder it's going to be at rank 4. There's a bunch of similar features from this cruiser that we already see in vehicles in the game, but it is part of its own unique class, and also does have some unique features, which is pretty cool. The main armament, though, should be really nice, and also one of the cool things about it is a little bit of additional armor compared to some of the other cruisers that France has. Being at rank 4 as well, it'll be able to research a good chunk of the blue water tech tree for France, which will always be nice. Let's get into the history of this vehicle. In the early 1930s, the French Navy faced the need to modernize its fleet, especially its cruiser lineup. The Pact of Rome placed restrictions on the construction of heavy cruisers, forcing the French to turn their attention to light cruisers. In 1930, the Technical Department of the Navy presented a report on the development of a new series of light cruisers designed to replace obsolete ships and increase the overall tonnage of the fleet. The requirements for the new project paid special attention to armor protection, cruising range, and also armament. A total of 6 cruisers were laid down. The lead ship was named the La Galissonière. The cruiser operated in the Mediterranean Sea after the capitulation of France and the occupation of the south of the country by German troops. The ship was scuttled by its crew in the dock in Toulon. The Italians raised the cruiser, but in 1943, after the armistice, it was captured by the Germans and returned to the Vichy government. In 1944, La Galissonière was sunk again, this time as a result of US airstrikes, and in 1954, the ship was raised and finally dismantled for scrap in 1956. So this cruiser doesn't exactly have a great history of use, but it does also mean that you could put it in 3 separate tech trees, which would be quite fun. You could stick it in the French one, also the Italian one, and the German one if you wanted to, which would be quite fun. La Galissonière has access to some pretty cool features actually, and some that I've actually really enjoyed on some of the other French aircraft that we have in the game already, but also it is kind of cool that there is some other parts of it which are slightly different. This vehicle has access to the 152mm cannons that you'll find on the Émile Bertin light cruisers. So it has 3 sets of 152mm cannons in triple setups. So 2 on the front and also 1 on the back. So even if you make your silhouette as small as possible, you have 2/3 of your main fire rate, which is quite nice. The other part of it is the secondaries are the 90mm guns in twin mounts, which are generally okay. They are alright. It doesn't have really any AA, unfortunately, just a pair of 37mm anti-aircraft guns, which are not great, and also some large caliber machine guns too. So since this thing was, built before the Second World War, and also didn't really have a huge service during the Second World War, it wasn't upgraded in terms of AA armament, so it just kind of stays the same. The vehicle is also interesting in terms of how close the front turrets are. So if you have a look at the model of it, the front turrets are basically on top of each other, and what this means is the ammo rack is all in one place for those, which isn't exactly fantastic, but what is cool about this vehicle is it actually has more armor than a lot of the other French ones that are here. One of the problems with the French cruisers is they're able to dish out a lot of firepower. They're able to do a lot of damage, and that is awesome, but also they can't really take any, and that is kind of sad. So with stuff like the Émile Bertin and also some of the other ones that are sat there, people just out-damage them or out-DPM them in the meta cruisers, the heavy cruisers usually that you face. So my hope is with this vehicle, it'll be a little bit better. The armor on this vehicle, it has a 105mm armor belt, which is pretty good for a light cruiser, and also it has anti-torpedo bulkheads inside the hull and an armored deck of 38mm. So this, I think in general, is looking quite good. It obviously depends on some of the other factors of its belt. It still has decent speed as well behind that. It isn't just, you know, a decent piece of armor for a light cruiser. It has 65 kilometers an hour top speed, which is quite nice. So overall, this vehicle is very much more which is balanced across the board, which is something you don't really find with the French cruisers, if I'm honest. Like, what you find with the French cruisers are ones which, as I said, their DPM is very good, but they don't survive very long. It's similar to some of the British cruisers that exist at 5.7 and also 5.3. They're able to output a lot of damage with their 8-inch guns, but they just can't take any damage at all. So I'm hoping with this vehicle, the Galissonière, it will have access to decent protection where it needs it, mainly in that front ammo rack, where it's going to be huge on the front of the vehicle, very similar to stuff like the Dunkirk, for example, and I'm just really hoping that it will survive. The vehicle itself looks really nice, and the other part of it that has to be said is the French tech tree. I feel like the French tech tree gets underappreciated quite a lot. They've just added the coastal stuff for France, which is okay, you know, it's not the best in the world, but it's serviceable, and it also gives you the options to run it alongside the blue water so you can capture zones and do stuff like that. But the cruisers and the destroyers for France are generally pretty fun, especially the destroyers. The destroyers have a lot of firepower, and they have really fun kind of AP shells which have a lot of explosive mass in them. So when you hit, you are always guaranteed to do a lot of damage. I was researching the Mogador the other day with the Douguet Touran and also the Triomphant, but also some of the tech tree vehicles that I've spaded out, and it generally just felt really nice playing them again. They just have a lovely DPM. They generally, you know, go in the water pretty quickly, and also they are able to take at least some hits, which is quite nice. Now, against the big bang destroyers, like stuff like the Americans, stuff like the British, you're obviously gonna, you know, struggle, but at the same time, you can still go toe for toe with them for a while. And I feel like the Galissonière is probably going to be the same against other light cruisers. Some light cruisers in this game are very poor at what they do. Things like the early Japanese light cruisers, stuff like the Sendai, for example, and then also the Kuma and the Kako. These things are not really fit for service while playing through the game. But there are a bunch of light cruisers that are super fun. The American ones are great for obvious reasons. You know, they have a crazy DPM. And also stuff like the Dido is fun for that exact same reason. With these 152mm, the Galissonière should also be in that group. And more vehicles for the French Blue Water Tree, I think, is super fun. It was really nice to hear from BVVD that one of the things that they're working on is also expanding nations in War Thunder, and France is one of those where it has been expanding quite a lot since it's one of the newest tech trees, but it's really cool to see them continue that trend. And going into next year, where they've already said they're going to be adding a bunch of battleships, they're going to be adding a bunch of other stuff, I just hope that France isn't forgotten and we continue to see stuff like this so people can still enjoy the tech tree. I highly recommend playing the French tech tree, I really do. They are really fun in the blue water sense, so if you do enjoy the naval component, make sure to check it out. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.